Welcome, everyone, to A Mexican and a Redneck Father the World. We are your host and surrogate fathers, Juan and Ben. Today we'll be discussing the problem, the lack of responsibility in fathers.
It's a big problem, Ben. We've been kind of discussing this off the mic. Is that how you say it?
Yes.
Before we record. So, I kind of feel sorry. Not really, but for the conversations that we had before we start recording, because they're really, really good. And I'm like, man, some people would be like, oh, I want to hear that, but you can't. But you hear the recorded one. But anyways,
That's our inside voice. We don't. That's our conversation. We're warming up the old chords.
Yeah, we're warming up the old
vocal cords.
Vocal cords. That's what they're called. Yeah. So I've really been thinking about this quite a bit, Ben, especially with the New Year's coming up, we are in the New Year's now.
It's here.
Hello, 2022.
Hello, welcome.
Oh my gosh.
Please be nicer to us
Yes.
than the past 2 years.
Let 2022 be a really good year and not 2022, meaning the same as 2021.
2020 was just a sheer dumpster fire.
It's 2020 and then 2021. Yeah, it's just the dumpster fire. It was a dumpster fire, but then it slid down into the big pile of tires, and then that caught on fire.
It was just a big tire fire.
Yeah, so
At a
hopefully,
scrapyard.
yeah, so hopefully this is gonna clean up. Have you ever seen that? You ever watched The Simpsons growing up?
Mm-mm.
You never watched? Oh, it's
Never
hilarious.
watched it.
There's there's this one episode where like the town basically turns into this big giant dumpster, and it's just polluted and chaos and everything like that. And at the end of the episode, you see the Indian with the tear rolling down the eye, and this guy comes like, he's like, if that makes you cry, don't look back. And he like looks back, he's like, no. It's like that's kind of how I feel.
But you know the theory about the Simpsons is they're like
Prophets?
soothsayers,
Yeah,
prophets. Yeah,
yeah.
like they can see into the future, and they've been predicting the future for years.
Yeah, which is kind of scary and crazy. Anyways, which kind of going back to the problem with the problem that we have in society right now. The lack of responsibility within the fathers. If you look at Homer Simpson, he was a clear example of that.
He was responsible in some ways. He did go to work. His family had a house. They had a car. They had food. They had school. They were clean. But are we talking about that responsibility or different responsibility?
Different responsibility. So, we made a statement a couple episodes ago as far as like something that really hit me. The man is the foundation of the home. And the woman, the wife, represents the house, the home structure. And then, as you know, I've recently had my 4th child, which is awesome. It's great. But it's really opened up my eyes to like the level of responsibility that I'm taking upon myself, and how nobody ever actually took the time to explain to me, this is what you're doing. You're building up the next generation. You are gonna all your hopes, dreams, and desires, they're gonna have to take second place, because these kids, this wife, she's going to be completely dependent upon you. And if you're not solid, then not only are you going to break, but then they're going to be living in a broken foundation. And have you ever lived in a house with a broken foundation?
Like literally.
Yeah, a literal house
where there's a crack.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's not good. It's not pleasant.
You know the spot where it's broken.
Yeah, you try to avoid that spot.
You're like, the floor gets weird over here.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, wow, that's such a great analogy, because like, how many men are like that, where you have that broken area in your life and you're like, yeah, let's just ignore that. But in reality, in order to have a good, prosperous marriage, a good, prosperous home, you have to fix that. If you don't want to pass it on to your kids, because then, it's like your brokenness is only going to get passed on to your kids. So as a father, it's like, dang, not only do I have to take care of these kids, not only do I have to take care of my wife, I have to somehow take care of myself and make myself better. So it's like, as a single guy, you might think like, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, I got good habits, I'm okay with living with me. But then you get married and you realize like, oh wait, I'm okay with this, but if this keeps on going on, that's what's going to happen. You're going to see the brokenness come into play. And here not too long ago, we did an interview with your grandfather, and we got to hear the story of his life. And something with listening to that story, I'm like, when you step back and look at a man's life, because he was 83 years old, and you're able to see hear his childhood, how he was raised, how that impacted your dad's life, how that impacted your life now. And that's, your third generation, but yet it's still impacting you. And it just made me realize, I was like, wow, what do I want my grandkids to say about me when I'm in that situation? Are they going to say, it's like, man, Grandpa had a tough life. He was a broken man. Yeah, probably in some areas. But, or are they going to say, it's like, I forgive him and I understand him better because of his brokenness? Or are they going to say, it's like, man, he had a crappy life, but he overcame that. I want to be an overcomer like my grandfather was.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because in a lot of ways, I feel like your grandfather has that, to where you're able to look back and be like, wow, he overcame a lot. I want to mimic that in his life.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to think that right now, at this point in our lives, because we both have small children, mine are from 3 to 9, and yours are newborn to 6.
Yeah.
What we do in the next 10 years will dictate how our family sees us for the rest of our lives.
Yes.
Our next 10 years, our choices, day-to-day choices, how we wake up. Are we waking up grumpy, or are we waking up and saying, good morning, I love you? Choosing to go that extra mile to make sure everyone got tucked in and had their stories read to them. All those little decisions. Choosing to just spend time with them and not check out on the phone or whatever. All of those little decisions are the ones I think that truly make the difference. I could be wrong.
No, you're absolutely right. I remember.
But I think that's where it's made up, is
Yes.
our day to day.
I remember reading, I forget what book it was, but it talked about how your personality is basically developed from when you're newborn all the way up to the age of 3. Your personality is developed. And then from that age on, from 3 and on, then you start developing your interactive skills, your social skills, but your actual, your core personality is developed from that stage, which is crazy to think of that. It's like, wow. Like, I start seeing my 6-year-old and I'm like, wow, some of the habits that you have, the personality that got developed at that age. And it's like, where did I mess up? Where could I have done better? It's like, but it's okay.
I like your 6-year-old.
She's
very
good.
sweet.
She's very sweet. She's very kind. And, but it's like, it goes back to that saying that my dad used to say. It's like, the thing you can't stand, that's the thing you have at home. And I'm like, but then I'm like, wait, she is mimicking us. So is she living out something? The thing that I can't stand in her, is that something that's in me that she just took off of me? And the answer is yes. Yeah, so it's like, it's frustrations that I have with myself that I'm seeing in her, but yet I didn't deal with it. Now I have to deal with it. And then now, not only do I have to deal with my brokenness, I have to be able to give grace to my daughter, because I realize, oh, that brokenness that I see in you, it's actually my brokenness that I pass on to you. So I can't get mad at you for having that, even though I want to. And sometimes I do respond out of anger, because I'm not a perfect dad. I wish I was, but I'm not. I say it's okay, but I hope it's okay.
But what you're saying in this thought is, it's so important to deal with our problems, our brokenness, or issues as soon as we realize they are a problem.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you have that moment that we all get, we're like, oh, that's a big issue. I need to do something to fix that, because people don't like that about me.
Yeah.
That's when you need to fix it, not when you're like, well, I'm gonna go fix the car. I'm gonna go, mow the yard. I'm gonna go clean the toilets, and then maybe I'll do it after that. And you get distracted, and that moment that hits you, it's one of those very strange things, that revelation of, oh, this is a problem. And I think oftentimes we get the luxury of choosing to not fix it and get distracted and go do something else, or try and say, okay, how do I might not even know how to fix it, but maybe I could read a book or watch a video or talk to a friend or something, you know.
Well, you said this, and sometimes we choose the distraction over actually dealing with the issue. You know, it's like, I'm just going to check out, you know. But
I could deal with this issue, but man, there's some funny videos on YouTube.
I'm just going to check out for a little bit. And yeah, like we have our checklist. As a man, we all have our checklist as far as like, am I being a responsible man? And then you have your criteria where you say like, yes, 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 yes. Well, I'm doing enough in this area. So this other here, the problem area, they'll just have to deal with it, you know? But so that's the problem that I'm seeing when I'm talking about the problem and then the lack of responsibility within fathers is that being a good father is not just checking off a criteria of, you know, working, providing. There's basic criteria, which I guess, you know, providing a safe home is one. Being present for your kids is another one. And what else would you say that's like a big one?
I mean, safe home, you know, good living conditions.
Food on the table.
You know, the basic necessities. And those are good.
Yeah.
You're providing a stable home
Stable-ish.
physically.
Yeah.
But are you providing a stable home emotionally and mentally?
Yes. And that's the hard part, because it requires you to have to look into yourself and be like, and realize, holy crap, I got to go into all those areas where the brokenness is at and start fixing that and start repairing that so that it doesn't pass on. Oh, holy crap, I have to actually go to my kids and apologize for my brokenness. I have to humble myself before them, which is, as a man, is hard to do.
It's hard.
Especially to a kid.
We love our pride and our ego.
Yes, that ego, when it gets in the way, it gets in the way. And to push them out of the way, it's hard.
It is.
Because it's painful, it hurts, it's humiliating. It's like, you know, it's like, who wants to tell the story? It's like, oh, I had to go apologize to my 3-year-old again. Why? Oh, I got angry and yelled at him and told him all kinds of bad things, and I didn't. You know, it's like, you don't want to be known as that.
No.
But you have to deal with that. You know, and it's like, I'm thinking about like memories, Ben. It's like, I don't want my kids to remember that. I don't want my kids to remember that moment when dad just went AWOL, which I have those memories of remembering my dad just going AWOL, but never apologizing about it. Never coming to me like, what was going on? Now, as a 36-year-old man, soon to be 37, I'm looking back and I'm seeing like, oh, that's what's going on with that guy. I thought he was just a jerk, which he was a jerk. But I'm like, now that I'm walking in his shoes, I'm able to see him like and extend grace and forgiveness to him. But now I'm realizing I have to deal with that brokenness. Not only my brokenness, but the brokenness that my father passed on to me so that I don't pass it on to my children. And it's hard because I have to be willing to humble myself before them and tell them, like, hey, I made a mistake. And I'm probably going to keep on making a lot of mistakes. And I'm sorry about that. But then there comes a point, too, where if somebody is constantly apologizing to you, but there's not that actual growth, you just get tired of it. You know? You've met that person.
I've met that person.
You know, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'll do better. That's what you say all the time, but you're not actually getting better. So the problem is not just, the solution is not like, oh, you just apologize. No, it's like you got to be willing to apologize, but then you also have to be willing to put in the work.
Well, the apology is the Band-Aid.
Yes.
It's really not the solution. It's I was trying, I failed. Please forgive me. Let's put a Band-Aid on our relationship. But next time, you actually need to do better.
Yeah.
So if you have a substance abuse issue or an anger issue or a being late and missing stuff all the time issue, those are real issues that dads and moms, I guess, also deal with. Those are real life things. And if you're constantly late, maybe you need to start doing better about being on time. You know, if you're drinking too much or getting too angry too much, maybe you need to quit drinking as much. You know, seek some real help. Because these are real changes that I believe actually shape the world,
Mm-hmm.
that actually make the difference in the world. Because, you know, if you're good to your 4 kids, I'm good to my 3 kids. That's 7 humans who are going to go out and make their own families and potentially make, you know, twice as many. So now you've got 14 or 21 grandkids. Now that's 21 more people in the world. And are they making good decisions or bad decisions? And all the people they'll touch. And I heard a great, I don't know how true it is. I just heard it on the radio, but it was a great statistic that said the most introverted person in the world will meet 10,000 people in their lifetime.
Oh, wow.
I mean, you think about an introverted person not talking to people, head down, they'll still come into contact with 10,000 people over the course of an average life living into the mid-70s.
Mm-hmm.
So if my family, you've met my kids, they're not introverted.
Yeah.
Your kids are not introverted. And it's like, okay, how many people are they going to meet? And what if you and I choose to make the right decisions? How much better will our area of the world be because we made good decisions as fathers and gave that emotional, mental, and physical stability at home?
Mm-hmm.
How much better will the world be? How many people will be affected that we'll never know about, but the wheel will keep going, and the world will just look that much better in 20, 30, 40 years?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the goal. That's the goal at the end of the day, Ben, I know for me, and I know for you as well, that, you know, we want our lives to count. And then 100 years from now, when our grandkids are talking about us, or great grandkids are talking about us, is like, man, I want them to be able to look back and be like, I want to be like my grandfather. He had challenges in his life, but he did not let that stop him or slow him down. He overcame them and became better. And I want to learn how to do that. And then there's something about it, Ben, when you hear stories within your family of somebody who overcame great challenges, it encourages you, because then it makes you realize that's part of my heritage.
That's your blood.
That's my blood.
Yeah.
You know, because the world is constantly going to be telling you that why you can't do things. But when you have somebody in your family that actually overcame the world and did the things that they weren't supposed to be able to do, it's like encouraging. It's like, oh, well, if he did it, I can do it too. You know? And that was one of the things it's for me, it was encouraging just hearing your grandfather's podcast, and then listening to that story of like, wow, this dude overcame a bunch of stuff, and his life is not perfect, but it's a whole lot better than what it should have been, you know? And that's really encouraging, but then we have the opportunity, Ben, because I keep on thinking, I was like, man, for myself, I think I don't really have any vices. I have issues like as far as like drinking, gambling, stuff like that. It's like I feel like I'm a really responsible dude, but I'm like I gotta take it to the next step.
Yeah.
Because I'm checking off this list of the basic needs, like basic needs, you know, basic provision. It's there, but there's got to be more. There's got to be that abundance of not just meeting the basic needs, but meeting all the needs, to where then it's not my family's being affected, but it's not just my family. My community is going to be affected. The environment around me is going to be changed. And then as other men are listening to our podcast, they're going to be like, man, if those 2 idiots can do it, we can do it. I can do it.
Yes. If these 2 idiots can do it, you can do it too.
And that's the point of this podcast. It's not saying like, oh, look at us, we got all the answers, because we don't. We are going through this journey. We were just talking off the podcast about how crazy it's going to be when, you know, we're in our 60s, 70s, and we're going to be listening back and be like, oh, we were so dumb and we're so dumb, so young and dumb. Now we're just old and dumb.
But but we were dumb enough to try.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, they should rename fatherhood growth.
Yeah.
Give it its real title. Mandatory growth.
Yeah, you're absolutely
Whether you
right.
like it or not, you will grow. You will hate it at times.
Yeah.
And you'll grow and think this is the best thing in the world for me. I'm so glad it happened.
Yeah. And it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing. But, man, when you step up to the challenge, I think it's going to be very, very rewarding. And that's what I'm looking forward to.
The most hard thing I've ever done and the most rewarding thing I've ever done is marriage and fatherhood.
Yeah. And we're just getting started.
Just getting warmed up.
Well, guys, with that being said, I want to thank everyone for listening to A Mexican and Redneck Follow the World. We love you and we're proud of you. And one last thing before we actually close out, I want to say, guys, with this podcast, if you're taking anything out of it, take the time to go on, whether you're listening to it on iTunes or at whatever streaming media you have, leave us a review. Give us a 5-star, 3-star, 2-star, whatever you want to do.
Let's start with 5.
Let's start with 5s. 5s is the adequate number. And then if you have some kind words to say in the review, we would greatly appreciate it. Also to our YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel. If you want to subscribe to our channel, some changes are happening. So we're trying
to
to
this blue blanket.
Yeah.
we're getting there, y'all. If you like the blue blanket.
We're trying to grow and expand. So if you can leave us a review, we would greatly appreciate that. With that being said, we want to say we're proud of you guys. Thank you.